This is Expedition Texas, the podcast, presented by Crazy Water. Hello and welcome to Expedition Texas, the podcast. I'm Bob Malden, your host, and very excited because today is a special Halloween episode of the show. We are presented each and every week by Crazy Water, the best thing to ever come out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas, and get your favorite number depending on how much you want mineral content-wise. I'm always a number 4 up in here and loving it. You get yours too by going into any of your favorite stores, grocery stores in East Texas or all across Texas, and when you're out in Mineral Wells, you can stop by and visit the original Famous Water Company. We'll tell you more about them in a moment. Also presented by the East Texas Oil Museum at Kilgore College. Go see Olivia Moore out there and take a walk through time at the East Texas Oil Museum. Now, I want to introduce my guest. He is an old friend of mine. We go way back, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we've done in the past and then tell you how exactly this is a Halloween episode. That's coming up. But first, please meet my friend, George Jones. Hello, sir.
Hello. Glad to be here.
All right. So you may be a familiar voice to fans of podcasts because you've had some really cool ones down through the years, and some of this theater of the mind kind of stuff you guys used to do on Astronet Radio was pretty fun.
We did do a lot of stuff. Probably our most popular was the scripted comedy, science fiction, fantasy, you name it, called Paranoia, Texas.
And I actually got to do a couple of voices on that.
You did?
I was digging through, I was rearranging and organizing files a couple of weeks ago, and I came across something that was a word, a character name that I did not recognize, and I'm like, what is that? I don't remember doing anything like that. And I pulled it up when it was audio of me doing a character voice, and I'm like, oh, that was Paranoia, Texas.
That's right.
That was because I did a voice for you guys on that. I didn't get to do as many as I wanted.
Yeah,
but
you were one of the famous people that we had on there. I consider you one of my famous guest stars.
Famous?
Yeah.
Who you been talking to?
Yeah, we had a lot of famous folks on there, and you're one of the few.
Oh, well, I don't know about famous, but it was fun. It's always fun to do that kind of stuff. But you guys, you've done so much down through the years, and I can't remember exactly how I met you. I know at one time you used to give tours around the city of Tyler. There were history tours. There were also ghost tours. You've been involved in theater. You are currently involved with a very historic theater. You've got so much going on. I don't even know where to start, George. So let's maybe start.
Well, first, let me tell you, you don't remember how we met?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
You were getting mugged in the park, and I was nearby. I stripped off my outer clothes and ran over in spandex and got mugged right with you.
Well, that must be, I've blocked it, I guess.
You blocked it? Well, it was a pretty rough beating, but we did survive.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Good to know. I just survived without my memory of it, I guess.
Yeah, evidently.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think probably first, though, you had the Tours of Tyler. And you guys were like taking the people who came to visit town and showing them everything.
That's true.
I mean, everything.
We did historic tours, we did azalea tours, rose tours, shopping tours, and our most popular was the haunted tours.
Yeah, which is how we get into kind of what our topic is today, because when Expedition Texas was in its early infancy, we had to do a Halloween episode that first season, and who comes along to provide but the one and only George Jones? Not the one and only. There's another George Jones that was kind of prominent.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, but our George Jones in East Texas, and in that season of Expedition Texas, we did. You guys were doing. I guess they were ghost tours, but they were there. They weren't just touring. There were people there with electronics and gadgets and infrared cameras, and they were hunting.
True.
And we went to two places.
Yes.
We went here in town and then one out at the Roseland Plantation.
Correct.
Refresh my memory, and for those who didn't get to see those episodes, tell everybody about what was going on that night.
Well, that was our special. We did a tour and followed by an overnight investigation for our paranormal conference, which we have every April,
That's
still
right.
to this day.
Yes.
And so we had 5 different locations going with paranormal investigative teams there with all the equipment and everything like you see on TV. And you were looking for something, and I was like, I got something cool you should do.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when you showed up, you're like, do I really want to do this, George? I don't know about this, George. Do I really want to do this?
Well, if you'll remember, I had my son with me because it was kind of a last-minute thing.
Yep.
You were like, hey, this could be a good Halloween episode.
Yep.
And I'm like, there was no time to get any of my usual camera ops, so I just like, hey, Jacob, want to make $50 tonight? And he's like, sure, what are we doing?
Wait a minute, your son got paid? I didn't get paid.
He never had to think about it if there was money involved.
Okay.
But it was not until we got to the first place, which was, I guess, the Goodman LeGrand house in Tyler, which is in North Tyler. And it's this big old, you can tell the story about it better than I can. I'm going to have you do that in a moment. And we're walking in, and he's like, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, well, you have to now because we're here and the camera's all put together. He's like, I don't want to do this, Dad. I'm like, Jacob, we're not going to see anything. It's okay. I was like, because I didn't. I was always the skeptic about that. The show's never been about ghosts, even though we've gone to a lot of places where they say that there are ghosts. And so I had to be like, we're not, which I didn't know this. I might have been fibbing just a little bit when I said, we're not going to see anything. Get the camera. Let's go. I kind of had to turn on the dad face there for that. And so we went in and we started there. Tell me, though, why did you guys choose that house?
Well, the Goodman LeGrand has been there for so many years, and it has a reputation for being haunted. To this day, lights will come on in the middle of the night, making sure that they've been turned off. You'll hear people talking upstairs when there's no one there. Sometimes the doors will open by themselves or shut by themselves. And they've actually seen full-bodied apparitions wandering the halls.
Really? So I totally lied to him when I said, and so we went up there, but that wasn't the only place you guys. I want to get into the details of those because those episodes are still floating around out there somewhere. I think they are in that first season. I'm not sure, but. You guys were also at the Roseland Plantation, and I think there was a warehouse type of situation out by the railroad tracks that was serving as a haunted house attraction,
right?
But was also being investigated during that. So talk about Roseland Plantation. What's the story on it?
Again, Roseland Plantation was actually there was 2 plantations here back during the 1800s, and that was one of them. They were twins. And it had run down and was really about to hit the dirt till these guys came in and started renovating it. And the more they renovated it, the more weird things started happening. Again, supposedly this young lady would appear on the balcony over the front door, pacing back and forth, because the young lady who had lived there was looking for her husband to return from the Civil War, and he never did. So she actually committed suicide because she was up there waiting for him to return, and he never came back. So She died of a broken heart, basically.
And then the other location we were in was, best I could tell, this was like a warehouse that had been set up as a haunted attraction.
Correct.
They had to build like a maze through it and all this kind of stuff, and there were lots of cool features in there. But there was a reason you guys were there as well.
Well, it was the original home of Tyler Pipe.
Really?
Okay, yes, that was the original home of Tyler Pipe.
I had no idea. They got a major upgrade when they moved out in 69.
Yes, they did. And back when they were living or working there's no such thing as OSHA, really. And
true.
I got
I
you.
can see where we're going with this.
You cut your head open. Here's some aspirin. Go back to work.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so there were deaths there on the property.
Yeah.
And severe injuries and all sorts of things. And then later on, after it had shut down, some vagrants had moved into one of the warehouses and managed to catch themselves on fire.
Oh, my gosh.
So there was a lot of drama there, and we were investigating all that. And that was probably the scariest location. It was quite terrifying.
Well,
I changed my underwear 3 times there.
This particular episode of the podcast, being the time that it's released is right before Halloween, is called, and we don't usually give an episode title, but this one is called The Ghosts of Texas. And I think you can see where we're going with this in our conversation with George, that we are going to get into some great ghost stories here in a little bit, because I've never heard anyone tell them better than this guy right here.
He doesn't get out much.
Yeah, well, I could listen to this guy tell ghost stories anytime, and we're going to get into some of those in just a little bit, and I don't know which ones he's going to tell. But for this first portion of the podcast, we want to talk about what actually made it onto the show that night, it might have been the fact that we were there and I had cameras and we were, I had a spooked 15-year-old kid with me and, we were trying to get this done that maybe it didn't work out that we caught anything on camera. But what we did catch was, I remember one scene in particular at the Goodman. We were upstairs and one of the investigators was, believe he had a digital recorder of some type. And he was talking, and he was being rather challenging, trying to get one of the ghosts to come out. And I remember saying, "Are we sure we want to do this?" Because he was getting a little snarky with them. I mean, with a ghost that he was wanting to try to see. Is that a proven technique, George?
I disagree with that entirely.
Okay.
I don't think that you should provoke ever. But unfortunately, Zach Baggins has made that his, bread and butter.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to be like Zach. I disagree with that entirely. So, he was up there doing that, and after we left, rumor has it that a door slammed behind him, and he had to go change his underwear as well.
Really?
Yeah. So, somebody wasn't happy.
And there was also at the Goodman, which the lights were completely out there. And we did get some footage, not Goodman, this is at the Roseland Plantation. There was by the time we got out there, they had all of the lights completely out, which I believe the lights were out at the Goodman as well, but we had already gotten into place before that. We went up into that Roseland Plantation, and it was feeling around in the dark and doing the best you could. We didn't have a phone with a flashlight, like we have nowadays, and so there was no quick draw flashlight situation.
It was very dark, and if you remember, some of the equipment started going off, and your son was trying to videotape it, and the camera was shaking.
I remember that. Yeah.
And you were like, "Hold it steady."
Yeah. Yes.
And you were like, "Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!"
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Yeah, I remember that. So, and then I remember just a little bit at the old Tyler Pipe location, but y'all had those and then a few others going that night. But we got what we needed out of that. We definitely got a good Halloween episode, and that aired several years in reruns too, every year around that time.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's still out there.
And so it was kind of the and I guess we need to, now that we're talking about it, probably need to go back and grab it up and put it on the YouTube channel, because folks are going to want to see it now that we're talking about it so
I'd like
much.
to refresh my memory about that.
So, but that's been a lot of years ago. So let's talk, though, a little bit about, how did you get into the paranormal investigation part of it? I know with ghost tours, you're taking people to haunted places and all that.
Well, that's going to lead into my first story if you want me to get into it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do that? Let's start off with how you get into this, into the actual hosting these investigations, and take us on into that first story. And I'm just going to turn it over to you because it's from here on out. This is the George Show. I want to hear this.
No pressure.
This first
Thanks,
story. Yeah. But let's y'all are about to hear why I invited this guy on. But George, tell me how you got into the paranormal investigation part of it.
Well, since I was a child, I've always been fascinated with the paranormal, and you can call it imagination or whatever, but I saw things that nobody else could see. Sometimes my mother would, sometimes not, and sometimes we'd compare notes, but nobody else in the family seemed to get it. When we'd walk by and we'd see a little girl standing over there, and then we'd do a double take and suddenly she wasn't, or things like that. She and I had that some sort of ability. I don't know what you call it. We also had sort of premonition. We could tell when something was going to happen or how something was going to go. And so one day, I guess I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was just kind of sitting around in the house, and my mom asked me out of the blue, "George, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a paranormal investigator." I didn't even know what those words meant. Really? I had no clue.
Okay.
But, I knew I liked Scooby-Doo.
Hey, maybe that's where the seeds got planted.
Yeah, and she sat there and she went, well, if anybody can make money at it, it'd be you. So it's always been in the back of my head. And so I was kind of investigating things at a very young age and doing stuff long before it was on TV, before it was anything, more than a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
But which leads me to my story.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to, before you get too deep into the story, I got to clarify. You were motivated into this line of work by Scooby-Doo?
Scooby-Doo is the greatness.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
I know. I'm excited about that.
Not that terrible Scrappy. Scrappy-Doo can go away. Yeah. But Scooby-Doo was the man.
It's like a whole Scrappy haters
in
club
a dog kind of way. He was the man.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I have
You like
mad
that?
respect for that, dude.
Thank you.
That's really
Thank you.
awesome.
You validated my existence.
I know.
I appreciate that.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yep.
that was my introduction into the ghosts.
Was it?
So yeah, I mean,
Really?
totally. Yeah.
Wow. So we've had this in common all this time.
I
never
did,
knew it.
but I never watched Scooby Doo and thought, that's what I need to do.
We should celebrate over a cheeseburger later.
We probably should. That and some Scooby snacks.
There you go. No,
All
but,
right,
okay,
first
so
story.
I guess I was about 8, 9 years old, and I was living in a house in Gilmer, Texas. Okay, and it was by the railroad tracks. The house doesn't exist anymore. They tore it down. But at that time, we had 2 homes. We had one out in Betty, Texas, which was our farm, and one in Gilmer, Texas, which is where I lived and went to school. And that particular day, the only ones in the house were myself, my mother, and my little nephew, who was a baby. He was, I don't know, maybe 1 year old. We were sitting there in the house, and it was an old-fashioned house, very rambly. And we were in the living room. My mom was sitting on the couch. I was sitting in the floor watching Gilligan's Island on TV. And my nephew was running around in his walker. And he knocked a glass of Kool-Aid over. And my mom says, "Oh, George, go get a towel and clean that up before it stains these hardwood floors." I said, "Okay, gonna miss Gilligan, but whatever."
Mm-hmm.
So I got up, and to get to the bathroom where the towels were, I had to go through these 2 double doors, like French doors, into an old dining room that we had actually converted into an extra bedroom, around this big queen-size bed, and into this shotgun-style bathroom, all the way to the end of it, where the cabinets were. So I walked that way, and, my nephew's trying to follow me, but he gets hung up on the bed, so I just leave him there. I get down there to the cabinets, and I open the cabinet, and I look to my left through the other doorway, which is the utility room, and I see a woman standing there. She's got on a very old-fashioned purple dress with big purple buttons. She's got blonde hair done up in a bun, somewhat resembled Samantha on Bewitched, somewhat. Very plain, though. And she had her hands on top of the washer in a box of clothespins. And I looked at her, and I said, "Oh, hello, sis. When did you get home?" Thinking that my sister had come home from work. But then 2 things hit me at once. Number 1, my sister could not get past me to get in there without me knowing it. And number 2, she wouldn't be caught dead in a dress.
Oh, really?
All that hit me all at once. And my hands froze on that towel. And I turned and looked again, and the woman was gone, and so was I. I turned around, I took 1 leap, cleared the entire bathroom, took a step, took another leap, cleared the bed and my nephew in the walker, left him there, took 2 more steps and a leap, and landed behind my mom on the couch and said, "Oh my God, there's somebody in the house, oh my God, oh my God." And Mom said, "And you left your nephew in there?" And she ran and grabbed him and pulled him back, and she had him in front of her. I was behind her, and we were all on the couch like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And after a minute, she said, "Well, George, I don't hear anything." And I said, "We're going to die." And she said, No, hold on. You must have been seeing things. So she tells me to stay there with my nephew, and she's going to go check. I said, "Okay, I will guard the couch." So she goes in there. Sure enough, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And she comes back and tells me, "George, there's nobody in this house." I'm like, "Really?" Well, I was terrified of that utility room. From that point forward, I would not go in there.
Right.
If I had to do laundry, I'd sit it in front of the doorway and beg somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
Wasn't going in there at all. And from that point forward as well, I started being aware of more things happening in the house. Different noises. In the middle of the night, we'd hear a voice going, "Mother, Mother." And then my mom would wake up and think it was one of us, but we were all asleep.
Yeah.
And then one day I woke up, I was having an afternoon nap for whatever reason. I rolled over, and there was a little girl standing there right beside the bed. And I just about went through the window, screaming.
Yeah.
My mom came in there. Of course, nobody was there.
Yeah.
But that was my first real ghost story.
So, did you ever? I guess maybe at that point, you maybe weren't thinking along the paranormal investigator lines yet, or was that seed already planted?
The seed was planted, but at that time, there was no internet.
Yeah.
I didn't even have an encyclopedia set.
There was not really any way to find out stories or hear any sort of backstory on that place to see if there was maybe you could connect it to something.
I did talk to my neighbor who had been there for many years. His name was Mr. Attaway. I'll never forget. And he said that there had been some people there that had experienced tragedy, but that was years and years ago, and he didn't even remember their names.
Yeah.
So there was really no way to research it at that time.
Yeah.
Many, many years later, after the house had already been condemned, I snuck back over there and went inside.
Okay.
And it was much smaller.
It seems like.
Yeah, but it still felt. I could feel it all over the place. I was only in there about 5 minutes, and I said, "Oh, nope, I'm done."
The thing is, we have always, and there's been a couple of times that, and when we do this on Expedition Texas, which there's been a couple of times where a place, which that's what our show is about, is the places, but we've never really focused on that haunted aspect of it in our regular episodes. And really about the only time we do is for the special time of year when it's around Halloween, and we usually have some sort of a ghost story type of aspect to what we're doing. But it's never to make fun. We have fun with it, but we're never making fun of it, because I've known too many people who have their own personal experiences. Just because I haven't, and there are more people that are more attuned to like being in tune with, other things going on out there that most of us just have the blinders on and go on about our day and never see or experience. But, I, for example, had an uncle who moved into a house, and within a few months, his entire family was moving back out of that house and out of the entire town, because of cars would pull up and lights would be shining in the window, and they look out and nobody's there.
Yep.
Or they'd open the window in the middle of the night and somebody's looking in and they disappear, or somebody, things moving around in the house, and these same stories repeated over and over and over again, and some of them even to the point of almost violent and physical. And even closer to home, we lived in a very, very old house. And when you say rambly, I almost kind of picture my house growing up, which is one of those, like, if I were to walk back into it now, it would seem small, but back then it was home and it was large, and it had the room that we needed. It was more than enough for our family, but it was a very, very old house that over the years they added on a kitchen and they added on a bathroom, because that wasn't there in the original house. Yeah. And then they added on a room to the back. And then whenever my sister and I got too old to share a room, they added on my room to the back of that. Yep. It rambled on, and so I get the rambly
it's
when you said that. It's
interesting how your perspective changes as you get older.
Yeah, and my sister, the way our house was lined up, our bedroom was one of the added-on ones. We had a bunk bed in there at the time. My room hadn't been built on yet. And we're in a bunk bed, and I'm on the top bunk, and she was on the bottom, and you could see down the hall into our living room. Well, she told us that in the middle of the night one night, a little old lady came walking in out of the living room, stopped just in the hallway, looked in, smiled at her, very sweet, and continued on in the kitchen like she was heading in to bake cookies or something. Like it just happened. And I'm like, okay, that's creepy. I never personally experienced that kind of stuff, but I do not ever discount the people that do. And you're one of the people that just do, George. And you've got more stories, and that was your story, of how it kind of got started with you. But we want to get into more stories with George when we come back. But first, I want to take a moment to tell you about Crazy Water, the very best thing to ever come out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. The waters of Mineral Wells, Texas have been making folks feel good inside and out since 1881. And maybe it's because of the flavor, or maybe it's that legendary story of the crazy woman who drank from the well and suddenly wasn't so crazy anymore. Either way, you'd be crazy not to drink it. Water as nature intended it, with minerals and electrolytes infused by Mother Nature, not some factory. This is all naturally occurring, folks. It's Crazy Water, straight out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. We're going to hear from the East Texas Oil Museum, our friend Olivia Moore, and we'll be right back with George Jones, our guest here on the Ghosts of Texas, the special Expedition Texas podcast, when we come back.
Do you love history? Do you ever wonder about the way things were almost 100 years ago in East Texas? Visit the Kilgore College East Texas Oil Museum to learn about the men and women who lived during the East Texas oil boom of the 1930s. Step back in time and visit Boomtown, USA, the life-size diorama of a town booming in oil. Step inside the general store and visit the shopkeeper. Head to the theater to watch the Great Oil Boom movie. And no visit would be complete without taking a quick journey on the elevator ride to the center of the earth to learn about all of the geology of the East Texas oil field. The East Texas Oil Museum is now open Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with last entry at 4 p.m. For more information, visit kilgore.edu/oil museum or find us on all the socials.
Welcome back to Expedition Texas, the podcast. Today's episode entitled The Ghosts of Texas, and we're going to hear about more of those in just a moment with our guest, George Jones. George is here to tell us ghost stories because I specifically asked him to do that. But, you know, George, we talked a little bit about what you used to do and how you kind of got introduced to this whole paranormal investigating world. But I want to take a minute to talk about what you currently do because you are sort of the guy that keeps this historic theater alive and kicking in Mineola, Texas. And I think the story of that theater and what you guys are currently doing there, and this is a piece of history that we are going to do a story on with Expedition Texas at some point. But not only that, this is a piece of history you can still go and be a part of it in its original form. This isn't a museum where you come see this is what this building used to be. You can go watch a movie or hear a concert at this theater, and it's the historic Select Theater in Mineola, Texas. George, I know you love this place because you've put so much work and blood, sweat, and tears into it. Tell us about the Select Theater in Mineola.
Well, the Select celebrated its 104th anniversary this last March.
Wow.
It's been open since 1920. It is the oldest continuously operating theater in the state of Texas. Some say in the South.
That's important. Continuously operating.
It's never shut down. Even during COVID, we managed to do some stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And you're right. We do live shows. We do concerts, stand-up comedy, live plays. We do classic movies. We do new movies. We do murder mysteries. Anything we can think of that's going to bring some entertainment in, we're going to do it.
Yeah. And
we recently acquired the annex across the street, which is the building that used to be part of the funeral home.
Bet you could do some investigating there.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that later. And also it's right next to where the old Leroy Theater used to be.
Okay.
And I've been working to put a second stage in there, which is now functional. And we do smaller shows over there and live music and murder mysteries and whatever there as well. And I'm working on a really big surprise. I can't tell you what it is.
Okay.
But I would say by mid-2025, there's going to be some news coming your way.
All right. Yeah. And I can't stress enough to the people listening to this and watching this how important it is to do business with a theater like this, because he's already mentioned that it's the oldest continuously operating theater in Texas, maybe even the South. But the fact that it is a place where you can still go and enjoy entertainment the way people have done for 104 years in the same space, maybe not the exact same furniture or whatever, but the stage is in the same place, and so much of it is preserved as it has been, for years and years and years, and you can actually still go, and it's not an expensive thing to do. I've seen theaters that are restored, and to be able to get in there, the cost of admission, you can't afford it. These are values in entertainment.
Absolutely.
Too.
We have the best prices in Texas. I mean, absolutely, and that's from ticket prices to candy prices to you name it.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because that's like, what's it cost to go see a movie?
Ticket. Like a senior ticket is $5.
$5.
Day or night.
Never, ever see that anymore.
Yep. And matinees are $6 across the board. And then evenings, adults are $8 and kids are $6.
$8. That's the most expensive thing you've mentioned.
That's it. That's the most expensive thing.
An $8 movie ticket.
Yep.
And you mentioned the concessions. That's one thing I've always been thoroughly pleased with, is like, I can get a piece of candy for the cost of a piece of candy, not the cost of a new Lincoln.
Right. I mean, our candy prices are comparable to the convenience store. They're not, if you go to some of these other big theaters, a large popcorn and a large drink is going to cost you $19. Okay.
Yeah.
$19. You get the same thing at our place for $8.50, $9.
Yeah.
Depending on what size.
I mean, sometimes going to see a movie, you might as well just make a car payment.
That's right.
But not with you
guys.
Put
a mortgage on your house.
Yeah.
Sell all your chickens.
Yeah. Right. But this is affordable entertainment. So if you have to drive a little bit to get there, it's definitely worth it. I just can't tell you.
Tuesday nights, 50-cent classics.
Really?
7 o'clock Tuesday nights, we run a classic film for 50 cents. Put a cartoon with it, put a sing-along with it, and give away prizes.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
It's a party in the house.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, you guys are located, of course, in the heart of downtown Mineola, Texas. It's right off of Highway 80. It's easy to find, and I love what you guys are doing. I love the fact that you're so passionate about it. You've already kind of given me a little tour of the theater. I had a chance to play with my band on the stage, which was a huge honor. Thank you for that. And so I want to do so much more with you guys, and I want folks to realize what a treasure it is to not just East Texas but the South. Really, I mean, it's such a cool thing to have. And so definitely, what's a good way for them to find you guys online and find out?
It's easy peasy. LakeCountryPlayhouse.com, HistoricSelectTheater.org. Either one of those will take you to our website, which is updated daily.
Explain to me, just to make the connection here, Lake Country Playhouse, what is that?
Lake Country Playhouse is actually the 501c3 organization that owns the theater, and they are the ones responsible for most of the live plays that we put on. I'm the executive director, and we'll kind of work hand in hand, bringing a lot of the live productions into the theater.
Awesome. Okay, good. That's good to know. So definitely check out those websites. And if there's a show coming up and you want to go see it, and it's a classic movie, and you can see it in a place where it might have run when it was brand new. How cool would that be? That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So anyway, I wanted to get that out there before we get too far along, George. But it is the Ghosts of Texas episode of the Expedition Texas podcast, and I want to get back to you've got a couple more good stories up your sleeve. So, sir,
I do.
Take us down the road a little further here.
Well, okay, I'll take you to. I was doing tours. You asked me how I got started. Well, it was a fluke.
Okay.
I used to own a bookstore here in town, and people kept coming in asking me what there was to do in Tyler. And I was like, well, there's movies and there's good places to eat, and I really didn't know what to tell them. Yeah. So as a fluke, I put a sign up in the window one day that said, "Ghost tour this Saturday night, 8:30. That's it. One sign, no advertisement. I showed up in my car to take what I figured to be 2 or 3 people, and there was a line down the street.
Wow.
I had to call 5 friends with bigger vehicles to carry everybody on the tours. That's how it started.
Okay.
But anyway, one of the places that we toured was the McClendon House here in town.
Okay.
Now, they don't like me talking about this, but I'm going to do it anyway because it was so doggone memorable.
Okay. Now, I know this is the one that's over, what is it, Vine and... what's the corner there? It's like a big X.
Houston and Vine.
Houston and Vine. Okay.
Yep. So I was taking a tour through one evening, and it was probably about 8 people and myself. And the first thing that happened was we got into the first room of the house downstairs, and we were recording EVPs. Now, EVPs stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena. And basically, you just have a recording device of any kind, have it recording, and you ask questions, and then you play it back and see if you got an answer.
Right.
So we were asking, is anybody there? We played it back, and we got an old woman's voice that said, "I miss my sister's touch."
Whoa.
Clear as that.
That is detailed.
Clear as that. And what had
Okay.
happened was the 2 old ladies who were the last of the McClendons that lived there were sleeping on mattresses in that room on the floor because they were too weak to get anywhere else, and they had to be rescued. And they
Whoa.
died a few weeks later in nursing homes.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, so that was the first thing.
Okay, and that was now. I don't want to take away from the story here, but I want to clear up. Why is it you think that the electronic devices and something in the mechanics of that, or in the electronics of that, makes it so that those things can be heard that the human ear cannot?
Well, my personal belief is that all we really are is energy.
Yes.
Okay, and so energy can be manipulated, sound, light, electronics, whatever. And so that is why it's easier for that to happen. Our human ears may not be able to pick it up, but the digital, the electronics, those things.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, old cassette decks, that's a magnetic medium.
Correct.
Things are being recorded and written magnetically with electrical pulses. Our ears are straight up analog. I mean, it's vibration. So there is I get it. There is a big difference.
There is a big difference.
Okay.
So, but anyway, so that was the first thing. Now we were already pretty creeped out. We were like, "Holy moly!"
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going on through the house, and we go to the grand staircase, which is a beautiful old wooden staircase that goes all the way up to the second floor. And we're about to go up it, and I start hearing something up there, like walking around. So I tell everybody, just hang on, just wait just a minute. And I go, is anybody up there? No answer. And I said, I don't know who's up there, but you better come on out because this house is closed for business right now. At that time I was vice president of the board.
Yeah.
And then I hear two, what sounds like boots going boom, 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 boom to the staircase. And I'm looking up at the top. I can't see anybody. Then I hear them start coming down. Boom, boom, boom. And there's nobody on those stairs.
Oh, wow.
And I took off running. I panicked. I'm sorry, folks. I turned into the biggest fat chicken you ever saw. I pushed a 13-year-old girl out of my way, and I said, get out of here.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it came down all the way down to the stairs. I could feel it coming. Everybody was screaming. We ran out the door. I'm telling you, we got outside. I slammed the door and locked it behind me. We jumped in the van, and I said, does anybody have a clean pair of shorts? It was bad.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
We were all in the van. The whole van was just rocking back and forth because we were all going, oh, my God.
Well, it's not only that, it's that you also have a van load of witnesses, too.
Yeah, the whole group was there. We were all freaking out.
Yeah. And so for that particular investigation or tour, I guess, you were just using something to record electronically.
We were only going to stay a few minutes. It wasn't, we were on a tour, so we were going to spend about 10, 15 minutes in the house, move on to the next location. We made it to the third room where the staircase was, and that's as far as we made it. When we started hearing those boot steps come down the stairs, we were done.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big chicken, but at that particular point...
Well, you can't be to be doing what you're doing. You're walking into places that are purported to be haunted, and you're trying to make something happen. I mean,
It was so unexpected, Yeah. I'd been in there hundreds of times.
Right.
At this particular time, something didn't want us there.
How do you go back the next time after something like that?
Very carefully.
Very respectfully.
In the daylight, turn on all the lights.
Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't long after that I was in there, and I had all the lights on. Yes, I did. And the phone starts ringing. And I look at it, and I'm like, who is calling at 11 o'clock at night? And I'm looking at this phone going, why is the phone ringing? And then I look at it, and the number that is calling it is the old number from the upstairs office that's disconnected.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Ooh, boy.
So I look at it, and it's ringing, and the guy that's with me goes, are you going to answer that? And I said, no. He said, no, you need to answer that. And I said, do you know what number that is? He said, answer it. So I picked it up, and I said, hello? And then the voice comes back on. It sounds like they're talking through static and everything else, and it says, hello, I see you.
Oh.
And I said, no, you don't. I hung that sucker down. I was like, well, that's it. We're out. We're out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had so I guess it's weird that you mentioned that because, and we're just sitting here talking about the electronic stuff. I had a situation where, and I don't know what this was. I've to this day, I just kind of blame it on some sort of fault in the circuitry. I had a guitar amp that my uncle had for, and it was, I think he sold it to me for $10. It was, you turned it on and it goes, and like hummed and was terrible noise. And in fact, I have a microphone back there.
I see it.
That was my very first microphone. That's not the exact microphone. I wore mine out. I had dropped it so many times, but that's the same exact one that my grandparents got for me. And I was that's where, because I did radio first, and that's where I developed this love of hearing my own voice for some reason, which I was a microphone. And that was the first thing, that my grandparents giving me. That was what planted the seeds in for me to get into radio later on. So at one point, one day I'm sitting there basically talking into my microphone, into this amp, which was really made for guitars, but I could hear myself, and that was close enough to broadcasting for me, right? And so I said something, and then I waited and started playing around and doing something else. And I mean, a full, it was at least a minute, if not more, later, I heard my own voice come out the speaker again and say the exact same thing I had just said. And chills, hair stood up on the back of my neck. I turned it off, got out of there, and I don't think I ever turned it on again.
Now let me ask you a question, Bob. In all the recordings you've done, and I know you've done thousands of them, you've never gone back and listened and heard a noise, and you're like, where did that come from?
Because I used tape and in radio, and you would, and that was not a recording. That was me sitting there. All I had was that amplifier and a microphone.
Right.
There was no recording device hooked up to it at all. That happened and I was guessing and tried to. This was me trying to make it work for myself.
Sure.
Rationalize.
I've heard those
as people
before.
do. And in my rational thinking, or what I thought was there was something about that old. It was a very old amp. That's why it hummed the way it did. It was an old tube amp. It had to warm up before you could ever use it. I mean, it was a very old amplifier. And so I thought, well, maybe it's just something about that tube circuitry that caused me to hear that repeat that much later. It wasn't like it just echoed back. It was much later that it did that. And so there was no recording taking place. And so, but I had also, in my early radio days, we recorded everything to tape, and we reused it over and over and over. And you would always hear what we called ghosts of previous recordings, because the erase head had gotten wore out or was dirty and wouldn't erase everything on the tape. So you would hear previous recordings, and sometimes you'd hear multiple previous recordings kind of quietly in the background. But I never heard anything that made me. That was the only time I'd ever heard anything having to do with electronics that really just freaked me out like that did. There was no explanation at that time. And I don't know enough about electronics to really say that my explanation that I came up with much, much later is plausible.
Right.
So, what do you think?
Well, I think anything is possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing about it. There's so many unexplained things and so many things that people don't understand, and they try to reason everything away, but you can't always do that.
Now, I'll tell you one that's very much not a ghost story, but it was pretty dang funny. Is I turned on the radio one day to an AM channel, I believe it was. I had this little boom box that I used to listen to, the oldie station. And I'm tuning across, and I hear this loud and clear, perfectly clear conversation come in. And I'm like, what is that? And I thought some kind of talk radio thing or whatever. And then I realized I recognized one of those voices. I had tuned to the exact frequency that my mom's cordless phone uses, and I was hearing her conversation with her best friend, and I'm like, I shouldn't be listening to this.
That's funny.
But anyway, that was definitely not a ghost story, but it's still kind of funny.
That's very funny.
All right. So I know we didn't want to keep you too long, and we've got
you
probably
want to hear my third story.
We've got like 15 minutes left here, and I don't want to lollygag too long. I want to get to this third story because I know you've been building to this one. I'm pretty sure.
I've saved this one for last.
Knowing
just for
the way you are, you build up and you have like this main story that you're getting to and you're building to it. So
it's just like gas. It builds up and explodes. It's all
George,
good.
Don't explode on us, man.
I'll try to hold it. I mean,
I know this is a Halloween episode.
I'm not going to perm up your couch.
The cleanup is not going to be good. Okay, so third ghost story. While we're here, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. George, take us down the road, man.
All right. Well, Bob, this third ghost story happened right here.
In this building?
In this building.
Golly.
Let me tell you
I
what
should have
happened.
vetted this before. There's been times working really late that I've had to spend the night up here.
I know.
And I don't, it's not a fun thing to do because this building makes noises.
Well, as you may or may not know, I had my studio up above for a couple of years.
Yeah, I forgot.
And, I worked late, just like you did.
Yeah.
And there were oftentimes, we were bumping into each other in the halls.
Mhm.
And I heard all the noises and things just like you did.
I figured they was just you up there.
I figured it was just you down here. But no, we kept hearing things coming from down here, and I would come down and I'd circle around. And this place is dark and scary.
Yes, it is.
At night.
Yes.
And there's not anybody here except for the occasion when I did run into you.
Yeah.
And so I was down in, I guess it's what used to be the lobby or break room for the little theater over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hearing all kinds of stuff. And I just happened to have 2 or 3 of my buddies with me because we just finished recording. And we had a couple of our pieces of equipment with us. So we decided we were going to investigate. So we set up shop down over there.
I really wish you hadn't have done that.
We set up. The look on your face is hilarious. Your eyes are getting bigger. we set up shop over there.
I was here till really late last night working on the new episode of Expedition Texas.
And we started, doing our thing. We started talking, if anybody's here, let us know. We don't mean you any harm, da-da-da-da-da. And we hear what sounds like footsteps coming from up around the corner. So we get up and walk around, and we see what looks like a shadow coming over here by your doors. Okay, and it's going that way. We're like, what the heck? So we follow it on down. Nothing. So we go into the little hallway over there where your mirrors are, which, by the way, you should never hang mirrors facing each other.
I know. There's like 900 of me when I come in the door.
Yes, and we're
and
looking
then like there's
at
an opening to some portal in there, I'm sure.
Well, we looked in there, and I swear to God, for just a second, it looked
Yeah.
like there was somebody standing behind us in those mirrors. So it's like, I don't know what this is, forget it. So we circled back down the hall, went back down there, and we're sitting there, and we were just chilling. Hey, is anybody here? Is anybody here? We don't mean any harm. We hear you all the time. We're friendly. Come on out and talk to us. And about that time, that door down there slammed shut.
No.
I'm serious. There was a boy with me. He's bigger than me. I'm a pretty big guy.
You mean the door to the kitchen area?
Yeah.
That door can't just slam shut without help because of the little kick thing is broken.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'll tell you what, the boy who's bigger than me grew wings. I mean, he was about to climb over the couch, the chair, and make a new hole through the door to get out. I was like, just calm down, calm down. It was just the door. Maybe the hinge broke. So we went and looked, and the kickstand ain't working right. It was taped up or whatever.
Yeah.
We were like, no, okay, let's not that.
Yeah.
So then we're looking, we're examining everything, and we see that there's a light under the door to what used to be your old studio.
Okay.
The big room.
one. Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe somebody's in there.
Yeah.
So I knock on the door thinking, Bob, is that you, Bob? Nope. Nobody answers, no noise, no nothing. So we prop the door back open, and we start trying to get it to work again. Hello? Anybody here? Can you shut that door again? Nothing. So then we go, would you come on down here and join us? And all of a sudden we hear a man's voice that says, okay, I'll be down there in a minute.
Oh, great.
And that's when Kit Scott comes walking down the hallway.
What?
Yep. He had come in the back door while we were down there panicking. And when I said, would y'all come on down here and join us? He's thinking we're just talking to him. So he says, okay, I'll be down there in a minute.
Oh.
Now, when he said that, we didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
So every last one of us, we're down there screaming, freaking out. Sphincters as tight as you can get. And we got a grip on the furniture like it's a death ride, and he comes down there and he looks at us and he goes, what in the world is going on?
Oh my gosh.
And he's pushing this cart. I guess he's returning some equipment or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank God it's you.
That is amazing. I love that because Kit was up here all the time. Kit was I worked with Kit on our show, Festival of Fear. Did he ever do he did some podcasting with you guys?
He did
too,
a
right?
bunch of stuff with me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he was up here for lots of reasons, but yeah, I love that though. And he's passed on since then, but that's a great story because that sounds like so much something he would do. It's like, okay, I'll be down there in a minute.
He had no idea, and we didn't either. And but after all that had been going on, we were losing it. And he came down there just totally, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, what are y'all doing? Why are you doing this?
And we were telling him what's going on. He goes, well, I'm going to hurry up and get out of here. He
probably didn't want any part of that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I figured we never did explain what happened.
Yeah,
but it ended with Kit. So there you go.
Great story. Well, I do love hearing you tell your stories, George. And are you still doing anything along those lines? I know the Paranormal Conference. Tell me about that.
Well, we do the Paranormal Conference every April. It's usually the second or third weekend, depending. And, we bring in experts in everything from Bigfoot, UFOs, psychics, you name it. We got it all there. We end the night with an investigation at 4 or 5 different places.
Okay.
And it's a party. It's an all-day affair. If you like anything paranormal or unexplainable, that's awesome. The place to be. And then every Saturday night at 8:30, we meet at my Curiosity Shop there in Mineola, which is directly across the street from the theater. And we do a walking haunted tour of Mineola.
Nice.
8:30 every Saturday night, $15 a person, and it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, Mineola is a pretty has a lot of history over that town as well. I mean,
it sure does.
Obviously, the 104-year-old theater that you are in charge of, but so much history around Mineola. That'd be a great thing to be a part of as well. So is there a way that folks can follow throughout the year with the paranormal? Because that's kind of what we're talking about here. And we've already talked about how they can learn about the theater, but is there a way they can follow the paranormal endeavors that you have out there, especially the conference?
Well, most of it is listed through the theater website because I donate money back to the theater from all that.
Good.
But you can also look it up on Facebook. There's the East Texas Paranormal Convention. It's on there. And also the Haunted Walking Tours of Mineola. It's on there. You can find me on Facebook just about everywhere.
That's awesome. Well, George, thank you so much for taking the time to come over here. Obviously, you're very busy. You've got a lot going on. But I love the chance to catch up with you anytime I can. But the fact that these mics are here this time and these cameras and we're catching this is
pretty much usual, Bob. Every time I'm with you, there's a mic somewhere.
Yeah, I know. There's usually one around, but the fact that it's specifically for this purpose is great. Yeah. And I really appreciate the time and coming over and doing this because now we have it. And we have it forever. So we can go back and listen and hear these stories anytime. And nothing is better than hearing a chilling ghost story told by George Jones this time of year. I love it. But anyway, folks, we are brought to you each and every week here by Crazy Water in Mineral Wells, Texas. And be sure to check them out in any of your favorite local grocery stores all across Texas. Or go by and visit the famous water company in Mineral Wells. And, of course, by the East Texas Oil Museum at Kilgore College. Thanks to Olivia Moore and everybody out there for what they do. And we will see you back here next week, folks, with another great podcast. For George Jones, I'm Bob Malden, and we'll see you next time right here on Expedition Texas Podcast.